Great. Well, I appreciate everybody joining today. If you haven't joined any of our webcasts before, we do a new webcast usually every couple of weeks. Holiday was a little slower, but usually every couple of weeks we do something new around something cool that you can do with SharePoint Search, Fast Search, or document libraries within SharePoint. If you haven't seen any of our past presentations, we have a lot of really great guest speakers, and then Robert and I also present on those. You can find those on the Surfray website under the Resources tab. We record all the presentations, and that's actually what we're going to be doing today. We'll record this presentation, and by Monday you will have the recording of the presentation, and the slide deck is actually already available on SlideShare, so I'll make sure as we go through this that we post the link to that deck so you'll have it to share with anybody that wasn't able to join. Today we have a really great presentation. Sadie Van Buren is a guest speaker today, and she is the author of the SharePoint Search or the SharePoint Maturity Model. We've used this on several of the webcasts in the past, and applied it to different ways to improve SharePoint Search. But we've had a chance to now collaborate on this particular presentation, and I hope you enjoy it. It's all about different ways to improve the SharePoint Search maturity with your environment, real actionable tasks that you can take. So with that, I'll be quiet here, and I will let Sadie take the show. If anybody has questions as we go through this, do make sure to send them in via the chat panel. Send them over to me. This is Josh Noble again. Robert's also on the line to answer questions, but we'll be able to field questions there via chat, and then we'll also have a QA session at the end. So we'll make sure to go through anything you'd like. So again, Sadie, thanks for joining us today, and I'll pass over the reins to you.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Josh, and thanks everybody for joining. Just going to go through quickly the agenda here for today's webinar. So we're going to go through just some logistics. I'll give a brief overview of the SharePoint maturity model and focus a bit on the search competency. We'll talk about the top 5 roadblocks to search maturity in SharePoint. And then we'll if time allows, we'll do some Q&A at the end, and we'll post contact information as well. As Josh said, if you have questions, send them through during chat or during the meeting, or afterwards you can always contact us. If you're tweeting this event, there are some hashtags you can use, and they're on the bottom of each slide as well, so you'll be able to refer to them throughout the presentation. At Surfray, hashtag SharePoint Maturity, and at Sadalit are the ones that will get those tweets back to us today. So also, as Josh mentioned, I think the presentation's on SlideShare now, and everybody will receive a link to the presentation on Monday as well. So I know we're going to be going kind of quickly through some of this content today, and so if there's anything that you want to do a deeper dive on, you will receive the presentation afterwards. So just briefly about me, I've been working with SharePoint since the beta 2003 version, been on more than 50 SharePoint implementations of various shapes and sizes. Currently, senior SharePoint engineer with Blue Metal Architects. And basically, on all those implementations in which I participated, many of them had some component of search. So I've seen many, many different examples of what people have done right and wrong in SharePoint search. To just talk a bit about the SharePoint maturity model, it's a framework that I developed about a year ago and then had vetted by hundreds of SharePoint community experts around the world, from end users to MVPs. So a lot of eyes have been on this and taken a good look at it. This slide just sort of summarizes the competencies. There are 4 core, of which search is one, 4 advanced competencies, and those are all basically the solution-oriented technological competencies. And then there are 3 readiness competencies as well. So it's a way that you can help evaluate your SharePoint implementation and really know if you're using SharePoint to its full potential. And where you're not, it's a way to find out, where you'd like to invest and really develop it more. So I've got a website, sharepointmaturity.com, where you can find more detail on the model as a whole. But as I said, today we're going to be focusing specifically on the search competency. Just to go through the maturity levels, very high level, you'll have the deck, as I said, you'll be able to go through this later. But basically, at the 100 level, that's just the very starting point of SharePoint use. And then you move upwards in maturity through sort of departmental use, entire enterprise use, and then finally at 500 you're really optimizing the particular competency and embedding continuous improvement into your processes. So in terms of SharePoint maturity itself, at the very lowest level, we're looking at, sort of very out-of-box functionality is being used. Moving upward, we're starting to employ maybe some custom scopes and eye filters to help the experience. At the 300 level, we're analyzing results and actually looking at what people are querying, and we might be actually applying some best bets and really making good use of metadata properties here. Now here's the point where typically customization may occur in a SharePoint environment, and by customization, I mean anything that touches the server. So not so much middle tier development, but actually anything that affects the server itself and might affect your upgrade or patching ability. But you can see that you can get pretty far with SharePoint search maturity just by doing the out-of-box things and making sort of content tweaks and customizations on your own. At the 400 level, might be using content types, custom properties, and customizing your results and query pages. And we'll be looking at a few examples of that in the following slides. And then finally, at level 500, users are really understanding the relationship of what they put in to what they get out. And they may be looking at some other things here like automated tagging or sort of a content recognition and performance as well. So to sum up, at the very lowest level, the user might be thinking, I use keyword search and I don't really expect much from the results. At the middle level, they may be having the experience of filtering queries and results on properties that might be appropriate to their project or their work. And at the highest level, the user's really going to trust search and possibly even have a situation where content is finding them based on the preferences they set. So now we're going to look at a few case studies. First, though, I'll talk about the data behind that I'm seeing about search maturity. So this is real data from SharePoint maturity assessments that I've done with clients, and also that people all over the community have sent me from their own assessments. And if you get a chance, you could go out, fill your own assessment. If you go to SharePointmaturity.com, there's a template there that you can kind of run through on your own. And if you decide to do this, it'll really help us fill out the data for everybody. But basically, this is sort of the maturity over search that I've seen in the assessments that I've done, and again, those that have been sent to me for the years of use that people have been using SharePoint. So you can see it's really quite low, where you figure that sort of 599 is the highest level that it could be. It's really quite low across all the years of use. I think this is really an area where companies just are not focusing or investing. And again, the same numbers across the number of users in the organization, they're low regardless of company size. So now we can look at a few examples of high and low SharePoint maturity. This is your out-of-box SharePoint search with no customizations or configurations. In this example, the user is looking for a template, but the results are returning actual project documents because nobody edited the document properties as they were saving from template down to their work product. So we're just getting a bunch of really not very helpful results. And you can see there's no custom refiners, and it's just a very, very basic out-of-box search experience. This is a much higher maturity level example. So I put it at sort of the 400 level for query. It's the query interface for Huron, which is a consulting firm in Chicago. They're global with 2,000 employees. They've customized SharePoint search to allow them to filter based on really business-specific properties. So they're refining the results before they ever hit the search button. In this example, we've got a MOS 2007 site, and we're showing a way of querying for people who don't know query language. So we're using drop-downs and radio buttons and essentially giving users options for search terms without their having to know query language. This is an example of how you can customize results to suit specific business needs. This was for a prototype I did for a digital marketing company. So it's an image search scope and results page that I built based on a great article by Matt McDermott, which I've got a link to in the resources section of this deck. And it just shows that, search results don't have to be just text-based. They can really be customized to suit the look and feel needs of your business or the particular business unit at the time. And here we have a really rich results page. There's well-defined refiners, different groupings. We've got best bets applied. And just as a note, some of this you can do with SharePoint out of the box and some you can't. For example, you'd need FAST to build a visual best bet. So those were a few examples of what SharePoint search could look like. And now we'll talk about the roadblocks to getting there. So from our experience with customers and clients over the years, the folks at Surfray agreed with me that these are the major roadblocks to good search in SharePoint. So number one being complacency, or it's just fine as it is. 2, lack of planning. 3, lack of knowledge or training. 4, lack of human resources. And 5, lack of budget. So to talk about the first one, complacency, right? This is where we're thinking to ourselves, SharePoint comes with search built in, so it should just work like Google. I hook it up to my content source, and it's already built. It's just finished, check. So, again, over and over in different implementations that I've seen, it turns out that this really is not enough. And once folks start using search and really not being able to get quality results out of it, kind of like that 100-level example we looked at a few slides ago, it's really important to try to think about it differently. So the solution that I recommend, be aware that SharePoint search was set up only for the properties common to every company. So that's file type, author or uploader, and date. And you have to ask yourself, is this really enough for a good experience at your company? And to recognize that the best search experience is going to come from aligning search to the needs of your business. The next roadblock is lack of planning. So there's so much else going on with the SharePoint implementation, and so many other sort of irons in the fire, and in IT in general, that we'll just get to search later, right? We'll just get the implementation up and running and get up the content and everybody happy and get the custom applications built, and we'll look at search in a phase 2 or a phase 3 or maybe never, going back to that number 1 complacency thing. So again, you don't have to go out and gather 50 different metadata types and do really time-consuming business analysis. You can start with the basics. Figure out what content you actually have and what people need to find, and determine which key pieces of metadata to collect early on and do it. And in most cases, you'll know this for your own company, right? Like you know what your metadata is. It might be product names, it might be client or customer names, it might be your business units or global areas of doing business. Whatever it is, you're probably going to start with a pretty good idea of what those are, even if you're not on the business end and you're just, you're more in IT kind of doing this planning. But regardless, my recommendation is plan now. And even if your implementation is already well underway, still plan for search and what you need to bring in to make it a better experience for people. So the third roadblock is lack of knowledge or training. And this really happens on 2 sides. So on the one hand, the IT owners or the owners of the implementation may not understand what's possible with SharePoint search. And by the same token, the end users may also not know what they can do to make the search experience better. They may not understand, the relationship of tagging and metadata to search results, that what you put in is what you get out kind of principle. And they also may not see the value of spending time setting up metadata or entering it. And let's face it, they're much more comfortable with folders. So here, my recommendation is, it's twofold. For IT owners, understand what's possible for both query and results. Think of the examples that I just showed and how much could be done with search to make it a more customized and intuitive experience for the users at your company. And if you're on this call and you're not part of the IT administration, you can encourage IT to ask for help if they're not search experts. Josh was just telling me before the webinar, he spends a lot of time just answering questions. And this is the case for many vendors and NVPs as well. They're open to answering questions. They have gotten where they are because they like to help people. So, if you have questions about search or what's possible or different ways it could work, I encourage you to reach out and find the person who's the expert in that area and ask a question. And I think more than likely they'll be happy to answer. On the other hand, for the end users, it's important for them to understand the relationship of tagging or metadata to search results, and also to understand the way content is positioned and structured in your environment and how that affects relevance. So, again, this doesn't require a full training program or any large time commitment. I mean, it could be just a few hours of sort of self-education for the IT staff, and even a page of guidelines for the end users could be enough to get you started. The next roadblock, lack of human resources. So once you understand what's possible with search, what if you just don't have anyone who can implement what you know? In IT, you may not have any developers or configurators who can deliver solutions, and maybe on the end user side you don't have that KM person or librarian who can gather requirements or monitor search results or create keywords and best bets. There's just, nobody has the time to dig into this, and maybe nobody's will ship. My recommendation here, if you're facing staffing issues, is to be able to demonstrate the return on investment so that you can actually make a case possibly for additional budget. So I'll discuss that a little bit more in the next roadblock, how you can develop that ROI. And also here, third-party vendors and solutions can alleviate some of that strain. So if you've got, it's not recommended really for an ongoing basis, but if you've got someone who can come in and just get you started, and maybe get some executive sponsorship to designate someone to own these kinds of things, like the creation of best bets, or someone to just do a report on search results every month. That can really go a long way to getting, if you have an expert come in and just sort of provide a little guidance, that might actually provide the vision of what can be possible within your company. Another roadblock is lack of budget. So let's say you've done your planning, you have an awareness of everything SharePoint Search can offer, but you have a really small farm or a small number of users or a small revenue or all of the above. At this point, my recommendation is always, and even for larger companies with big budgets, don't dive into the deep end. Find the limits of your current platform before you invest, by which I mean, don't just go out and start plugging in solutions to make search better before you actually know the limits of what SharePoint can do and what you need out of your content. Also, if you're facing a small budget situation, start small. Take a little time, build proof of concepts and mock-ups. Those can go a long way to, even if it's just wireframing out a solution, it can go a long way to building a case. And finally, you can demonstrate return on investment, gather anecdotes from people. How do they feel about search? Do a survey. Find some real, sort of human quotes and input to this situation that you can take to a superior and say, look, we've got an issue here that we would really, I think, go far to resolve. Sometimes there could be good help desk reports that you can leverage in order to find out, what people are thinking of or what their complaints or questions are about the search experience. And then, another way to demonstrate it is using SharePoint's built-in metrics. It has an interface that will show you what people are searching for, when they don't find it, and how many terms they're searching for, the frequency, the volume. So you can actually learn a lot about how search is used without doing any work at all, just being able to go in and see that report. So, to sum up, some of the key points that I'm trying to make are: recognize that the best experience comes from aligning search to the needs of your business, right? Like it's not enough to just take that lowest common denominator out of the box SharePoint search and assume that will make all your end users happy. Definitely plan for search and build it into your implementation, whatever state it's in. Learn about what's possible and how to optimize content for SharePoint. And there's so much content out there on the web that's just for free, little video tutorials that you can just watch quickly to show what's possible. So that's a really low-cost investment. It's just a bit of time. Demonstrate some return on investment. Make a case, surface some user complaints and concerns, and actually monitor those search result reports. Definitely figure out how far your platform can go before you spend money on an add-in or investing in something like that. And then finally, reach out and ask. And I know I've made things sound easy, and clearly search is not easy. Otherwise, we'd see a lot more mature implementations out there. But people and I, like Josh and I, we're here to help. So don't be afraid to reach out. So to just give you some next steps and some things that you could do as a takeaway from this webinar, you can go fill out a self-assessment at sharepointmaturity.com. There's an Excel template there that you can get a quick graph of your results, and basically all the details for each competency are there on some slides that you can download. The overview deck is there so that you can sort of walk through these competencies yourself and try to figure out what your baseline is. And if you have questions about that, please don't hesitate to contact me. I'd be happy to help walk you through it. I always love when people send me their data after they've done an assessment. Even if you just assess yourself on the search competency, that data is going to help me make the data model better for everybody and help all the community with their benchmarking. And I will definitely keep your name, your company name completely anonymous. I'm really just looking for basic facts like industry and company size and number of users and things like that. And you can definitely reach out and contact us if you have questions or feedback on this webinar, or if you'd like more help either assessing your current search implementation or your current SharePoint maturity. I wanted to mention a couple of upcoming events. So next February 2nd, there's going to be another Surfray webcast on the top 3 reasons you should upgrade to FAST. And then at the end of February, both Surfray and I will be at SBTechCon San Francisco. So if you're going to be out there then, would love to, say hi, or if you have any questions, that would be a great place to catch either Josh or myself in person. So here's contact details for both myself and for Josh. And at this point, Josh, I think I'll turn it back to you and see if we've had any questions come through in the chat.
Yeah, definitely. I had a question come up from King Elder up here. Sadie, are there any boilerplate examples of end-user guidelines for adding metadata that are available on the Microsoft sites or other sites? I sent over a couple different links. One is a presentation that Michael Psarek did with us a couple months ago, or I guess last month, on how to do some card sorting, how to do some requirement gathering to figure out what metadata it would be relevant to your environment. Also sent over a presentation on ways to actually collect metadata through metadata columns. But you can see the question in the chat there. I don't know if you have some additional things that you might want to mention to King around kind of guidelines around adding metadata.
Yeah, there's just a whole wealth of resources out there, and I've got some up on SharePointMaturity.com. There's a resources section where I'll have some links to content publication and metadata planning. I can put some more up there after the webinar as well. I think it really, again though, it's helpful to have a template to start with, but really it again sort of depends on the needs of your business. And I often urge folks to just start simple and start small. Take the things that are really clearly, obviously part of your business, like those categories I had mentioned before, department or business unit or location or product line, practice area, those sorts of things. I mean, those are going to be really the place to start. And even just surfacing those is going to make the experience better. And once you've done that, I think you can dig in and do some more complex metadata planning. But again, it does really depend on the business. So I'll put some resources out, but I think again, it's hard to just kind of say one template can fix them all.
And that's definitely an area I know Sadie has been pretty selfless on not plugging much that they do at Blue Metal or what we do with Ontolica at Surfray. But that's definitely an area to reach out if you want to understand some case studies for what's relevant to different verticals that you specialize in. If different things that might be relevant to your environment, whether that's metadata, whether that's different types of search refiners, or different ways to build out useful search experiences, make sure to reach out to Sadie or myself. We're more than happy to speak, whether that means we're talking about your base SharePoint environment fast, or if we're talking about enhancing that with something like Ontolica.
Right, that's a really good point, Josh. And I will just say, many SharePoint vendors are, they are very capable to help with sort of the solution for the technology and, getting a search interface built or, helping set up something custom, but they may not be as expert in actually helping plan and do the business analysis around that. So it helps to find a company that can really help maximize your content experience as well as your solution.
So aside from a request from Carlos here to go and for you to come into New York and speak at their enterprise search user group, I haven't received any other questions here. I want to make sure that before we we stop this, that we do answer any questions that everybody has. We do have plenty of time here, so we want to make sure that we address anything in real time here. Just a reminder, I will send out the link to this presentation. I'll actually do that in the chat right now, but you'll get a link to the recording of this as well as the slide deck as well by Monday. Well, if we don't have any other questions, then we'll sign off. But you do have our full contact information, so if you happen to have any questions that come up afterwards, make sure to fire them over, and then share the presentation deck with anybody that you might find would benefit from it. And then if you're going to be out at SharePoint TechCon next month, make sure to track us down. I know Sadie has a few different presentations that she's giving at the conference, and myself and a few of our colleagues at Surfray will be at our booth there. And then check in 2 weeks for our next presentation, all about reasons to go to FAST. Again, Sadie, thanks for joining today, and we'll sign it off.
Great. Thanks, Josh, and thanks to everybody who attended.